Hey everybody, I'm Jonathan. Welcome to Master's presentation of our Dynasty Spotlight series. I'm joined today by Dynasty Al, the Doc Ryan Milletti, two co-workers here at Master's with me. Really excited to talk Dynasty football, Justin Fields. I'm going to start with you. A lot of hype this year on Trevor Lawrence. Are you buying the hype on Justin Fields though?
I mean, I am buying the hype on Justin Fields, and I think he's an elite talent. We've seen that with Trevor Lawrence, and we've seen it with Fields as well. And we talked a lot about Lawrence. Fields also has a really good arm, and he's really good at taking care of the football. It doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. He's shown really good accuracy. Not to mention a little more dynamic of a runner than Lawrence, even though Lawrence can run himself. So, I mean, overall, I think Fields is the total package. Him and Lawrence have been the two best prospects from high school, now in college going to the pros. I mean, it's been this way all along, and though I think Lawrence is just a touch better than Fields, like I said, I think they're both elite guys, and, I mean, you can't really go wrong with Justin Fields as a quarterback.
Kind of like 1A, 1B.
Yeah, 1A, 1B, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree from an evaluation standpoint. And it's really kind of cool that you brought it up. I mean, going back to high school, they were the number one, number two prospects coming out. Most rankings had Lawrence as the number one, Fields as the number two. And now, looking ahead of the draft, are they going to go 1 and 2? It kind of looks that way to me. We look at the draft order, it looks like, despite what almost happened last week, it looks like the Jets are probably going to hold on to that number one pick. So, like we talked about, we think Lawrence will probably go number one to the Jets. And that means Jacksonville sitting there at number 2. Do they go Justin Fields? I think they do. I don't see how they pass that up, especially looking at their situation right now. I mean, they've had Minshew take snaps. They've had Mike Glennon start games. They've had Luton. Jacksonville's quarterback room right now is looking for something new, looking for some stability. I think it's an interesting destination. I think it's right now better than the Jets, actually. Is it my favorite destination for him? I don't know, but it's an intriguing one, and I think probably the most likely.
Yeah, and I actually read a story today. I thought it was kind of interesting. So, like, Gardner Minshew was begging for his job
I saw that as well, yeah.
And as much as a nice story as that is, I think if, Justin Fields is there, I think Jacksonville takes him. They have to. I just want to speak about some of the weapons in Jacksonville. I mean, if Justin Fields were to land there, who do you think benefits the most?
I mean, off the top of my head, all the receivers get a little bump from the get-go there. Obviously, DJ Shark, we talked a little bit about him last with Lawrence. Just with Lawrence, you would see an uptick in Shark, and I think the same thing would be the case if Fields was the quarterback in Jacksonville. Shark, I think at that point, he's up towards getting into that high third round, maybe even sneaking into the second. I think he takes a huge jump with Fields as his quarterback if he can stay healthy. And I think it's a big bump for Laviska Shenault as well, because they'll be able to air the ball out. You got to worry about Fields' legs as well, so that's going to give defenses a little bit of trouble. Guys like Shenault can get open, make some plays after the catch. I think it would be huge for that offense in general.
Yeah, good stuff. But one of the things we had talked a little bit about before the show, Justin Fields, I like his composure. I'm a big Buckeyes fan. I mean, even in that Clemson game when we were down that last drive, and I know it ended in an interception, it was just a calming moment during that drive. He doesn't seem to panic on the field. I think he'd be a great addition in Jacksonville. But I wanted to speak about some dream scenarios for you guys. Most likely headed to Jacksonville, maybe New York. Outside of those two teams, what would be your favorite Dynasty destination for Justin Fields?
So I got one, but real quick before I get into it, kind of perfect segue talking about the calmness and the composure. Want to know a quarterback who I always just thought seemed extra calm, extra composed, even though he hasn't necessarily had the Super Bowl success we might want, is Cam Newton. He just seems like a guy who's always calm, just looks very comfortable out there in his own skin, got some gum chewing in the mouth sometimes. So when you think of Cam Newton, I think Carolina. And with Carolina, obviously Cam Newton left a year ago. Teddy Bridgewater came in, has been decent this year, but getting to pair Justin Fields with offensive minds like Joe Brady and head coach Matt Rule, surrounded by guys like Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel. The weapons are there. It's a young group. It's a group that's growing together. Teddy Bridgewater is even there to, be a bridge. Bridgewater be the bridge year one and step in and maybe even, ease the rookie into it. But I think Fields is good enough. He could come in week one and play right away. But Carolina's kind of my ideal spot for him. I think it'd be really exciting for all the weapons and including mainly Justin Fields.
Yeah, I like it. A ton of weapons down there. Doc, you were real big on Bridgewater. I probably don't like hearing that very much.
I don't. I mean, and realistically, it won't happen just because, I mean, Fields is probably going to go 2 or even 1. But I like Teddy going forward still, too. I think he's put up some good numbers this year. That's as long as Joe Brady sticks around, which I don't think he's going to be there much longer. He's just too good an offensive mind. But for me, you know, a dream scenario I think of off the bat is a place like Denver. Again, like the odds of it happening very slim, and they probably are going to end up with a different quarterback in this draft, or maybe a guy like Stafford who could be on his way out in Detroit. But, I mean, pairing Fields with, you know, he's got a Gordon and Lindsey backfield in that scenario to take a little bit of pressure off of him, a great defense, and then he's throwing the ball to Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant. I mean, it would be perfect from the get-go. I mean, we talked a lot about Denver going into this season. Drew Lock hasn't been able to get the job done. Fields, I think, would slide right in and just put on a show, for lack of a better term. It would be electric, and I'd love having anybody in that offense.
Yeah, both great destinations. And I mean, when I look around the NFL landscape, tons of teams that could use a quarterback. A few scenarios popping. I don't know if any of them could actually happen, but I'm thinking even like Atlanta.
Yeah.
I'm out on Matt Ryan personally. I'd love to see, you know, a little bit of youth at quarterback there. Tons of destinations. But I actually want to get into some draft stock now. You know, coming into rookie free agent drafts this season. You know, we spoke earlier about Trevor Lawrence. You had him mid-first round. I think you had him late. I said possibly could be the 1.1 in a lot of rookie drafts this year. Where do you guys see Justin Fields slotting in at?
I mean, for me, I kind of see him going mid to late first round, similar to what I said to Lawrence, but I could see him getting drafted before Lawrence simply because of that rushing ability that he has. Again, we've said Lawrence has good athleticism, can run as well, but Fields, I think you can do a lot more. He's more dynamic as a runner, and he's going to be in a better situation from the get-go if he goes to Jacksonville, whereas Lawrence might take a little bit of time. So for where I am right now, if things are the way they are right now, come time for your rookie draft, I take Fields a little bit above Lawrence, but I'm still going with, you know, some of the other dynamic running backs and receivers at the top of the draft.
So it's really kind of crazy to hear, you know, Fields above Lawrence and you know, our dynasty drafts, because we always talk about Lawrence as the 1A, Fields as the 1B, but I mean, it's hard to disagree when you look at these quarterbacks we've seen recently, the rushing upside. I mean, Kyler Murray was on a historic pace this year, even though it's slowed down a little bit the last couple weeks. You look at Lamar Jackson last year, I mean, the rushing upside and the rushing touchdowns just really makes these quarterbacks dangerous. It's exciting. I mean, it's what we play fantasy football for, is to score fantasy points and win leagues. I mean, I still think probably mid to late first, but I don't think anyone who took Kyler Murray early first 2 years ago is regretting it. I mean, I think I took him at 1.04 in a league, and I think I would have taken him at the 1.01 looking back on it. I mean, you know, he's been phenomenal this year, and the longevity of most of these quarterbacks. When we talk about the value of a Patrick Mahomes, it's hard to put it on paper. So if there's a good of a prospect as you think they are, and they land in a good spot, it's hard to say anything's too high for him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think like with some of these running quarterbacks, I'm starting to lean towards the time to get them is during their rookie season, sophomore season. I mean, we just see it over and over. Even, I mean, you mentioned down in Carolina. I mean, down in Arizona, Kyler Murray not running the ball as much. Lamar Jackson this year not running the ball as much. I just think sometimes with these quarterbacks, once they establish themselves, you know, teams kind of pull back the reins on their rushing.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, like, Justin Fields' rushing ability, I think will be an asset for his first couple of years in the league. And if he does prove to be a long-term answer at quarterback, I think you'll start to see him dial that back.
Yeah, and I definitely agree to that for sure. But I mean, we talk about, you know, obviously we think he has the arm talent too to be special.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they tone back his design, I mean, the legs are still there. Like, he still gives you that rushing upside that Tom Brady's not going to bring. That, you know, some of these older pocket passers just don't have the ability. So maybe the designed runs get called back, but still any given week he can rip off a 40-yard scramble or, you know.
Right. And I guess what I'm saying is, like, the first couple years in the league, I think his rushing ability will give him a leg up.
Oh, like when to capitalize on it. Right,
That's when to capitalize on it.
Yeah, and you know, you look at Russell Wilson, I think he's a great example of that. Yeah.
I was going to say, too, I think it's different than a guy like Lamar Jackson, who was such a dynamic runner and then he could kind of throw the ball a little bit, and you had to develop him there. I think Fields, to me, is very similar to like a Deshaun Watson, where he could sit in the pocket and pick you apart all day, but he also can run at a high level as well. So I think that's where you're getting tremendous value, because he doesn't need to run. He can do it in the air as well, and that's where I think he's kind of different than some of these other guys.
Deshaun Watson was actually like my pro player comp for Fields, because it's kind of, I mean, they're all unique quarterbacks, and it's hard to, say. But I think Watson's the closest thing right now to Fields, and I like that a lot. And kind of from a composure or calmness standpoint, I mean, you look at Watson winning national championships at Clemson. I mean, I think there's a lot of parallels between Watson and Fields as a player.
Yeah. All right. So just last question I got to ask. You're on the clock in your Dynasty draft. What's the earliest you're pulling the trigger?
I'm going to say 1.04.
I'd say that as well. I guess, I mean, we have a league too where I'm pretty needy at quarterback. I mean, depending on where I end up, maybe I take him 1.2. But I'd probably take someone else at 1.1 first.
Yeah, speaking of a league we're in, I just won the division this weekend. I'm very happy about that. I beat both these guys.
We both had more points scored than him, though.
Yeah,
So.
by hundreds.
Yeah.
Good stuff, guys. That's going to wrap up today's Dynasty Spotlight on Justin Fields. Keep a lookout. We're going to have tons more college guys coming out, tons more college spotlights. Thank you so much for listening. If you can, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Any last words, guys?
Thanks for listening, guys.